Okay.
I'll let you guys go ahead.
Sure, I'll go quick. So just really briefly, hey, I'm Jack. I've been investing seriously for around like 4 years now, and owner of AbCellera and Palantir since around 21. I just want to quick start off by saying I'm not an expert in investing or biotech, so I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. But over the last few years, I've followed AbCellera very closely and really just like to share my research online to learn together with everyone and put it out there for others to make a decision. So with that, thanks a lot for having me on, and I think this will be fun.
Awesome. For my end, I'm a scientist, and I'm doing my postdoc, and I'm not really an expert on investing. What I like is the science and all the techniques they are doing. I've been following AbCellera for like a year now. I kind of discovered it thanks to Jack, so thank Jack for that. And yeah, since then I've been going deep down on the different parts of the company, trying to understand why they're doing and what they are doing. And I've been trying to put it out here in X to see what's the answer and see if we have to have some feedback with some people. Till now, I feel it's been pretty positive. So there is still a lot of things to uncover from this company, and I'm happy to start a conversation, see if we can open some discussion on it.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So we get a little bit of both sides of it because you're a scientist and Jack's more of a investor type, so that's really cool. I'm Ashton. I've been investing for about 3 years. I've been learning how to invest for about 5. Just kind of trying to teach myself. I actually found ABCL from Sam. He's in here right now. He's a listener. He was telling me about it because we were talking about AMD and Nike and stuff, and he brought it up. So I looked into it, and I thought it was really interesting. And then Satayal, he showed me Jack and Linden, and then I looked at your guys' stuff. I read your article, and then I was like, oh, wow, I really need to check this out because it sounds like it could be the next big thing. So I thought it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And hey, really quick shout out to Satayal. I love his support, and it's great to have him in the community. And Sam.
Heck yeah, man. There's a lot of people in the community. I didn't realize the ABCL community was so big until I met you two, honestly.
Yeah, we're still growing. We're just getting started, but yeah, it's been fun so far.
Heck yeah, we got to get I think it's ASTS, the space company. Their cult on here is huge, so we just got to get it like that. We got to get a cult stock going.
That's right, there we go.
I'm sorry, I don't know why it muted me. All right, well, if you guys want to kick it off and kind of talk about what the company does, you know a little bit more about it than I do, so.
To me, it says that it looks like the connection was lost. I don't know if it's me or what's going on.
I can hear you all right.
Okay, awesome. You want to start, Jack?
Oh, sure. So the way I would describe AbCellera in short is it's a biotech company that they serve to accelerate the antibody drug discovery process using their fully integrated platform that combines microfluidics, which might kind of come off as a buzzword right now, but we'll get into that and what it means. They do use AI, but I've made the argument plenty of times it's not just an AI company. And then they use real world data, and that's the key in my opinion. And so this core technology, their microfluidics, enables them to screen millions of immune cells to identify high quality antibodies. And that's where they leverage the AI and visualization through their Cilium platform to analyze and optimize these antibodies. And the key to me is that they're trying to search through the human immune system with real world data and antibodies rather than using computational algorithms to generate it from the ground up. And so the key is, they're using AI as a tool to view information to help the user make a decision. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, I agree with 100% with what just Jack said. The way that I see the company is, it's a biotech company. That's not an issue here, but it's a different kind of biotech company. Because usually biotech companies start with a PI, for instance, that discovers a molecule from the university, and then they start the company, and then it becomes this whole company is invested in one molecule or a couple of molecules, and then they go forward the clinical trials, they try to get money. That's not how AbCellera works. AbCellera starts with a different approach. It's the Carl and Veronique. They start doing the microfluidic. They patent that, and then they start a company based on that device. It's like they have that device that they allow them to do the antibiotics and the antibodies, sorry, and then they start stacking techniques and platforms around the microfluidics. They start with the microfluidics, then they start with the psyllium. That's why I think Peter Thiel starts with the company, because the microfluidics allow them to have a shit ton of data and high quality data, and then they build an AI. Then they also acquired the Triani in 2021, I think. They also acquired the tetragenetics in 2022. They acquired the Ortomap for the T-cell engagers. So it's a company that it doesn't start from one or two or three drugs, molecules. They start with one device that it's what allows them to discover plenty of other antibodies. And that's why at the beginning of the company, they wanted to collaborate with bigger players, because they just wanted to focus on that device and the capabilities to find new antibodies. And we can go more deep later on how they do it and everything, but more or less that's the way that I got attracted with this company.
That's awesome. Yeah. So there's like a lot more than just AI in the company, basically. Because I feel like that's kind of what I've seen is they just think it's like an AI biotech company, but there's a lot more science that goes into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of people, when they think about an AI drug discovery company, I don't want to start throwing out other company names there, but I think there's, kind of a lot of hype with some of these areas that heavily rely on computation and algorithms for their discovery. And a big key difference for me, like we're saying here, is, they have like, real world data through microfluidics, which, differentiates them from kind of what people think of normally as AI drug discovery.
Sorry, my dog is acting up. So how critical do you think the psyllium is to AbCellera's moat? Do you think that's like the most important part of their business, or what do you view that as?
You can go ahead, Linden.
Yeah. So as I said now, I feel like the psyllium it's a huge part of the company. They have I think they have filed a patent for it, for the whole visualization of antibodies. I think that it's very critical to the moat of the company, but I don't think that it's the only thing. I think that the power of AbCellera, it's the stacking of different platforms. The core one is the microfluidics. So if they would have lost that patent with the Bruker company, that would have been really bad. But now that that's protected, that's protected for at least 10 more years, and that's, for me, that's the cornerstone of the company. And from there, they bring new platforms, and one it's the psyllium one to like process and understand and digest all that real data of antibodies that they are generating, because that's too much to do it oneself. And then they adapt the other platforms. But I feel like microfluidics go first, the psyllium goes second, in order of hierarchies in which platforms are more important or less important in the company. And one little thing here, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the day that the U.S. court said that the patent was legit and it was AbCellera's, because Bruker was saying that AbCellera's just patented something that was already known from previous knowledge, and they just put a couple of things together and patented. They didn't do anything new. The U.S. court says that it's not true. The microfluidics of the AbCellera is new and legit. It's well protected. The day after that happened, the biggest wealth management, UBS, bought like, I don't know if it was 5 or 7 million shares, and they increased like 120% their stake on the company. So just by seeing that, the next day, it makes me think that they were actually scared that if they would lose that patent, the company was going to fall, because everyone could be using the microfluidics outside of AbCellera.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to that, my take, similar to Linden here, is I think cilium, it is critical to the overall process as, one component to their whole stack. But for me, like, if a competitor came out and claimed to have the same kind of tool, I wouldn't necessarily, like, really get worried right off the bat, as, in my opinion, the visualization tool is meaningless without the high quality data that comes from the other components in the tech stack. And really quick, I think it might be helpful for listeners tuning in that might not be very familiar with some of the stuff we're talking about, to just kind of briefly describe what microfluidics actually is. And so, like, a common description I've read that I think is pretty good is, it's like it's a card, you can say, like the size of a credit card, and with AbCellera they have over 200,000 nanowells on each card, and they're like microscopic. And through talking with Linden, I think he had a great analogy. You can look at them like mini petri dishes where experiments are conducted. And so the way this works is they'll take their Triani mouse, which produces human antibodies, and they'll infect it with the target antigen of whatever virus they are, trying to have a cure against. And so they immunize the mouse, and I'm still here. Okay. They immunize the mouse, and it starts producing antibody-secreting cells, regarding the specific antigen it was infected with. And those antibody-secreting cells then get loaded up into the microfluidic device. And within each little nanowell, like I said, like the mini petri dishes, those include different antigens. Some are target antigens that they want to hit. Some are specific antigens or proteins that they want to avoid. And they load up the chip with, all these antibodies so they can interact, and then they can use their visualization to understand how these antibodies are interacting with the antigens. And so that's just a brief description on kind of how the microfluidics works. Would you agree with that, Linden, or anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, 100%. Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
I think.
Ashton, do you got any questions on that?
I think we are going through it a couple of times in your write-up. I also had tried to explain it. I don't think there is much to explain, but to go actually to the pattern and understand what is it, because it's physics. Like, it's not an easy thing to understand.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can go check Linden and I's profiles, and we've definitely written about it quite a few times.
Yeah, I tried to share your guys' 2 posts at the top. I put Linden's thread and then your article up there too, if anyone wants to check those out, because those go really well in depth. The only question I kind of had to follow up on that, the science, of course, is a little bit hard to understand, but I wanted to ask you guys about, like, the funds that are buying and selling recently, because I feel like last time I looked, funds were selling a lot more than they were buying. Does that, like, worry you at all, or not really?
Linden, I saw you had a really great response. I saw someone mention that to you this morning. If you want to expand on it, I think what you said this morning was perfect.
Yeah, so since this is a post from Eric from this week. I don't know if Eric is here. Since January, they increased the funding. The funds increased from, I think it was from 34 to 42% of the shares of the company. So in the last at least 6 months, I would say, they have been increasing the institutional ownership of the company. And
yeah,
also there there is. It's what I was telling to this guy that was actually raising this question, which is legit. That they've been the institutions have been loading out a lot of shares. But I feel like we also have to focus on which ones are staying and which ones are selling and which ones are buying. And for me, it's not the same now that, for instance, the Baker brothers would start unloading shares. That would be bad. Like, being honest, like, that wouldn't be a good sign. But in November, these guys, they load up 20% of their actual position. So they are actually increased back in November, 6 months ago. And now we have UBS after the patent thing. There can be other funds that they are unloading shares. Yes, I mean the whole biotech space is pretty bad. So I feel like a lot of funds have to cover positions and they have to sell anything. And AbCellera, the company seen as a biotech, they are just putting 2 drugs now in phase 1. They haven't even started. So if you look at it from a point of view of a biotech, they're really far away from starting making money. But again, it's not a company that it's not a company called around 2 or 3 drugs. It's a company called around the microfluidics and all the pipeline. So I don't know. We can have awesome revenue in like. I feel like at the end of this year from the T-cell engager and the partnership with AbbVie, because they say that they are a fully owned drug company, but they're still partnering. So I feel like we can see different sources of revenue, but it is an actual confusing point, this one. So yeah, I would agree that I'm not very confident about all that stuff. I think that what matters is that the main institutions are still holding and still buying. There is other ones that they might be confused. I feel like we are all very confused with this company. Me, the first one, because they say things that sometimes it's not what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I really have nothing to add to that. I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Just to add a little bit, back to what you said about the Baker Brothers fund. They've been known to be kind of like legends within the biotech space. And right after AbCellera won that patent trial a couple of weeks ago, we saw the Baker Bros bought shares again.
No, it was it was UBS. Baker Bros was in November.
Oh, my apologies. Okay. Well, then even UBS, the largest private bank, buying shares, that's great to see. I think that's a valid point about, the whole biotech space is getting crushed right now. And I'm not an expert on how these funds work, but I think, that's an interesting point about, whether maybe some of them are forced to sell to cover their losses. And again, I completely agree with your point about, how it's a whole platform that they're providing, and it's not just about like 1 or 2 molecules that they're advancing. And then regarding potential revenue generation, I know we definitely expect something from this AbbVie partnership, and it can take, I don't know, like upwards of a year or whatever for them to get everything finalized. And, whether that's, $50 million up front, I don't know if that probably wouldn't move stock price. But if it's, more like 100 million or something, then potentially that could, get funds excited. But there's a lot to play out, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I got you. And I feel like it kind of matters which fund does what, I guess. And he kind of hinted at that. Like, if it's a good fund and they're selling, that's going to worry you a little bit more than other funds selling. And I feel like a lot of the funds probably don't fully understand like what AbCellera is doing or what they're going for. So I totally agree.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy to understand the company. Like, I don't think it's an easy company to understand, because again, they don't disclose anything. They don't give much of a fuck about retail or like investment. No, because they talk about, that's one thing that somehow it upsets me, but I understand why they do it. But they say we have this engine, like they say this name is like they mystify the thing. It's just like, okay, no, it's a microfluidics with the psyllium, and there is those are actual experiments, but they kind of say it in a way that it sounds a little bit. It doesn't sound like something that you can understand just by what they say. And I don't know. I feel like they do that also because, I mean, they have 600 million in cash. They don't need the money right away, so they don't have any debt, so they can fly under the radar for some years. And yeah, it's not good for the investors, but again, they are trying to bring drugs to the market. So I think that they are not forced to sell themselves really like you can see other companies in the biotech space that they start like claiming that they do this all AI stuff and BDA is working with them and they are so awesome. Like these guys need to make a living. Like they need the money, but they need to raise capital. I feel like AbCellera doesn't need to do that right now. So they are like not providing much information. But that's my point.
I completely agree. And one of the things I noted in like my original kind of like big write-up I did on the company was how I picked up on like exactly what you're saying in the demeanor from the company. I agree with like, you know, a lot of these companies seem to be a little bit more reliant on generating hype, like you say, saying, oh, well, we got NVIDIA to invest in us and we have, you know, X amount of petabytes of data. And things like that. And I noticed, like, I've heard people ask Carl Hansen on earnings calls, trying to say, like, hey, Carl, could you help us understand, like, what the major component is of AbCellera that you attribute your, you know, potential success to? And they're always really vague, and they're kind of like, oh, yeah, you know, we don't really, like, claim to have a special part that we think really does it. It's more about having the integrated platform as a whole, and, you know, we plan on just letting the science speak for itself. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because as a retail investor, I know one of our biggest complaints kind of is like the investor relations is non-existent. And like Linden is saying, you know, they're almost like secretive about it in a way. But I respect that they're not trying to generate hype. And also I acknowledge that, you know, I think Peter Thiel has a statement about like all great companies are built on secrets. And not that everything they do is a complete secret, otherwise we wouldn't, you know, be talking about this today. But, you know, I appreciate the fact that they're just, you know, focused on doing the job. They're going to let the science speak for itself. And, you know, they're not worried about like bragging about a specific part of their company. They just want to, you know, get the work done.
Yeah, so it's basically just trusting the leadership because they don't really talk about it too much or give too much info on exactly what's going on. Is that kind of what you're saying?
To an extent, I think it's definitely important to understand. Like, you know, like we worked hard to dig up this information and try and better understand it, and I think it is important to know these things. But regarding like relying on leadership, I think we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's definitely a lot of things I see from like Hansen's background and listening to him speak at the University of Austin, Texas, that you know, gives me confidence in his competence and leadership, and those things definitely help kind of bridge the gap in areas where some things might not be so clear, for sure. And that's one of the risks with this company, for sure.
Okay, yeah, I got you for sure. Well, we can move on to this little next part here. I was going to ask, how confident are you in the approach of consistently yielding superior antibodies for complex diseases? Because I know they kind of had the thing with COVID and that all happened, and I was wondering if that also kind of boosts your confidence.
Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, sure. So how confident am I in their approach to consistently yield superior antibodies for complex diseases and stuff? You're asking?
Yeah.
Sure. So I would say my confidence comes from my belief that there's something special about the way they do their single cell analysis. And so because they can select individual antibodies rather than doing like a pooled approach of analyzing like a whole group of them, which I think quite a few other competitors might do, my thesis is that it seems like they have this superior single cell analysis platform capabilities thanks to Carl Hansen's background, and that kind of comes into play where you're saying, like, you know, a little bit relying on management. Carl Hansen he talked about at the University of Austin, Texas, he only took a couple biology classes, and really his main background comes from engineering. And so when I forgot what school it was at, if he was at UBC or which one, but he got to work under what many people say is like a legend in microfluidics. His name was Stephen Quake, and Hansen worked with him as a postdoctoral fellow, and he talks about it at University of Austin, Texas. He was saying, that was a big thing that kind of allowed him to rub shoulders with the legend and learn from one of the greats. And Steve Quake was like a pioneer in microfluidics. And then again, like we talked about with them winning the court case against Bruker, that gives me confidence that there's something special about their platform and what they do. And so with that, assuming that there is something special about their platform and it's superior, I expect an edge there in antibody discovery. And then, to answer your question about solving complex diseases, this one's a little bit tough because we don't have a ton to go off of, but about a month or two ago, they released a report stating their T-cell engager platform was showing high tumor cell kill rates for prostate cancer, and then with an ideal safety profile. And I think that was lower cytokine release. And so that information there helps paint the picture a little bit for me, where, obviously we need preclinical data to validate, but I think it's a good sign.
Awesome, that's great. Linden, did you have anything to add to that, or do you think he kind of hit everything?
Yeah, I would like to go more into the technical part of the company for this, because I feel like they will yield superior antibodies, and I feel like they have already showed that. They have already showed that for COVID, for instance. They did this. They found this antibody in 90 days for COVID. No one seems to remember that, because the antibody was later on discarded because it wasn't efficient for the next the next COVID strains. But that's the same as the flu shot. So it's just because the virus changes. It's not because the antibody itself was from the beginning shitty. So that's one example. We have another example right now, which is ABCL 635, which is for hot flashes. So I think that it's pretty significant that these ABCL 635, where they are targeting this receptor that it's well known in the bibliography, it's well known in the science that it's the one that causes this disease. But so far it's only been targeted with small molecules and hormone treatment. Nobody has ever targeted with antibodies, because I bet that someone had the idea before, but technically it wasn't possible. The way they are able to do it as a company, it's because they have the whole pipeline, not only the microfluidics, which that one helps, but also, for instance, they acquired the tetragenetics in 2021, I think it was, which is just to purify better GPCR receptors, which was the technical part, because GPCR receptors, apparently in the lab, they are really hard to purify and have them fully. They usually are broken or they are low quality, or you have low yield. So with this tetragenetics, which is a company that was in Australia, they acquired it. They somehow fused, and with this capability, they can immunize the triani mouse, and then they can obtain better antibodies. So all this to say that they have the capabilities to yield superior antibodies. I don't think it's I think it's a fact. We already know, and they have shown it. The problem is that they have to market this. They have to sell those antibodies, and that's going to take a hot minute, because until phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, it's finished. It's gonna take a minute, but I feel like a lot of big pharmas, they are gonna realize, if not they already know, and they're gonna come back and knock on their door and say, okay, we want to do this. We wanna work with this receptor. Let's see if we can work with this, and AbCellera is gonna decide if they're gonna do it or not. But I think that we're in a moment in which they have the platforms, and this it's not me saying this. This is Carl. He says that on his in earning calls. They are getting into the end they have the platform, the TCE, the T cell engagers, and the GPCRs. If they are all ready or almost ready, so now they just have to. It's going to be a sausage making factory. Like they're going to be making antibodies faster and better than anyone. Not because they have the capabilities, not because they are smarter. It's just because they've been building this engine and pipeline to create the antibodies.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, sounds like they're the ones that can do it for sure. Is there like a certain company that you would want to see them partner with more than another? Because I know they've partnered with, it was AbbVie, right?
Yeah.
And Eli Lilly, I think.
Yeah. Right now I think that the biggest one is Eli Lilly and AbbVie, and so I have this is my own theory. This is my own this is not this is what I think it happens. But if you go back in 2020, 21, 22, and you check the partnerships, they are partnering with everyone. Like anyone that wants to partner with them, they're collaborating. They almost don't get any revenue for milestones. And I think that what happens is that a lot of companies wanted to collaborate with them so they would have this blockbuster drug and then they could go forward. And I think that AbCellera got tired of all these little companies just looking for the blockbuster, like obsessed with them, and just dropping molecules with them or dropping like discovery programs just because they wanted the one to go forward. There is I say this because we have this ABCL 575, which is an OX40 ligand, which it was initially developed with EQRX company. This company wanted to do this component, this molecule, and then they say, okay, we give up, we have other shit to do, and they stopped working with that. And I bet that pissed them off because they were like, okay, we have spent hours working on this, we're not getting that much revenue from the milestones, and we actually have an awesome molecule. Like by what Carl says, this is a best-in-class potential molecule. And it's a crowded space, yeah, because everyone is in OX40 ligands, everyone's working there. And again, they didn't decide that discovery program. But once you have a good molecule, I feel like it's pretty dumb to just ditch it because either the market it's autistic, it's not working, or because the company which you are working with doesn't have the vision or actually have the tunnel vision to only get one molecule. So they are buying a lot of lottery tickets around, see which one's going to be the one. So I think that they're just partnering with the big dogs that they know what to do, like Eli Lilly, which is the biggest pharma, and AbbVie, which is AbbVie is a company that in oncology, in cancer research, they're pretty big. So they've been trying a lot for like the last 15 years to get something done with cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add on to that really quick. One comment I want to make on that ABCL 575 targeting the atopic dermatitis. I think there's been like some really valid criticism, and you just bring it up that it's a really crowded space. And I like the note you make about how, this came from like a partnership and it kind of got dumped on them. But one interesting note that I think is like worth considering is I know they highlighted, like, even though it's a crowded space, like, for example, they cite like Dupixent, that's how you pronounce it, right, is like one really popular drug in the space. And they said that like there's like a certain population, I don't know if it's like 30% of users or whatever, that don't really receive like a response from it. And that's the target population that they're seeking to help with their 575 drug. And so even though it is a crowded space, and I absolutely understand the criticism and why people don't like it. I do find it interesting that, they believe they have potential to help that specific population that isn't getting a response from what's out there right now, at least with Dupixent. But to answer the original question, for me, I really like seeing, like Linden said, like big partners like AbbVie and Eli Lilly or Regeneron, because like he's saying, some of these small players either aren't taking it seriously, or like one of the things on the last earnings call that got brought up was, I think, like 3 molecules or something like that was with the partner got paused. And they asked about that, and AbCellera said that from what they understand, it was due to the fact that this was a smaller company that ran out of capital to keep on, extending it through clinical trials. And so with these bigger players like AbbVie or Eli Lilly, they have a massive amount of cash. And so I think it's a far less problem with them, running out of fundraising or something to advance a molecule. And so I'm really happy to keep on seeing those giants partner with AbCellera.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that could be a huge part for the business for sure. And I know it's kind of off topic a little bit, but I do know someone that actually tried to take Dupixent and they completely lost their vision. I know that's off topic, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh boy.
Yeah, someone I used to go to school with, they took it, and like just this year they completely lost their vision because like the white blood cells in their retina or something like that, I think is what happened.
Wow, that's, man, hope he recovers. That's horrible. But
yeah. Anyways, so I kind of want to shift to this. So AbCellera, they're shifting towards wholly owned programs like the ABCL 575 and the 635. And I saw today, like you posted, that Hansen said something about it. It was like clinically, it was cleared for clinical development today. I saw you saw that today. So, one second here. My computer's not working.
It's all good.
So how do you think investors should weigh the trade-offs between the company's low-risk partnership-based model, like with these companies we're talking about with Eli Lilly and AbbVie, and then the higher upside potential of the in-house programs like ABCL 575 that was cleared today and the 635?
Sure. So Linden and I have talked about this quite a bit, and so he really helped kind of get me in the right mindset for this. And after, I'll share something from one of our community legends, Eric Gunnarsson, shared something. But so basically, in short, they say they're a clinical stage biotech, but it's like a little bit confusing because they still are doing partnerships, such as, well, I shouldn't, yeah. Like they're doing like Eli Lilly earlier in 24, they expanded that partnership, and I think AbbVie was within the last 6 months or so. So, on one side of the mouth, they're saying they're a clinical stage biotech, but on the other side, they're still doing partnerships. And back to what we were saying about it seemed like some of these partners weren't taking it serious enough or didn't have the capital. I definitely do like seeing AbCellera start initiating some of these molecules on their own into phase 1. But I think it kind of seems like the goal here is to have good data readouts and then partner later on in phase 2 and phase 3, where the partner can take on the cash burn required to advance these molecules in exchange for an equity stake and royalties. And I got Eric's tweet up here. His name's Eric Gunnarsson. He has his account set to private, so go ahead and send him a follow request, and he might accept. But what he shared here was from Hansen. I'll just read it. Hansen was saying, talking about their molecules. He said, in other programs, there may be a good case for getting it into the hands of another partner. And a case in point for ABCL 575, our enthusiasm and excitement for that program is about what we perceive to be an immense potential for the OX40 ligand class. One scenario is that the program ends up being transferred to a large committed partner that can simultaneously develop the program across multiple indications and maximize value. And probably that's the most likely scenario from where we sit today. And then he goes on to say, he does say though, but another scenario is that we could identify one or more indications where we could develop it ourselves and create more value, at least into phase 2 or perhaps even phase 3. And we don't know what the answer to that is. So it's not guaranteed that they're going to hand off the molecules, but it makes sense to me. And Linden and I have also talked about, the company's expertise is within the antibody discovery part, and so even though it's nice to be able to take something, if they can get it to the market on their own, obviously they'll make a lot more cash. But by handing off the molecules in phase 2 or phase 3, that allows them to focus on what they're actually good at doing and, potentially scale faster. So I think it's kind of a hybrid approach, and I definitely like, how they're approaching it right now.
Yeah. I'm 100% with your thesis. Well, one thing that I have here, one of the questions that I have is, because they have, you talk about the trade-off between like a partnership-based or being in-house programs. We know that they are doing both right now, because last year they announced the renewal with Eli Lilly. And this year in January they started the partnership with AB, and now they're also taking these two molecules. So they're doing both. I think that we agree on that, right?
Absolutely.
But the thing is, how much more they are doing from one or the other? Like, how much you think that, like, do you still that in core inside the company, they are still partnership-based model, but they say that it's in-house programs just to appease the investors, or they're actually focused on in-house programs, and then if they can get some juicy partnerships, they do that. Like, if you would say, like, you think it's 50-50, 60-40, 30-70, like, which one would you say is their approach?
Oh, I mean, that's tough for me to answer. I would say just based on what we know. I mean, obviously, like, they have their whole stack of, like, all their different programs initiated. It's like, over 100 or whatever, and obviously the majority of those are partnerships. Something we can make note of here is that, like, they say they have 16 molecules in the clinic, and from that standpoint, almost all of those were partnered, and now they have a couple in-house molecules that they're advancing. And so I definitely think probably still, the data shows the majority of them seem to be partnered still. And but one key note, just to kind of go off course here, that Linden and I were talking about that we thought was important to highlight is there seems to be a misconception with some retail investors, and it's not their fault. The company says it themselves and kind of irritates us a little bit about having these 16 molecules in the clinic. Really, it's like 3. Because 2 of them were from COVID and got discontinued. Like 5 of them or something are animal health drugs, and we don't necessarily really care about those. I'm not even sure if they're still advancing right now. And then the rest of them kind of got paused due to being with small players that didn't have enough funding. And so really it's like ABCL 575, 635, which are wholly owned, and then they have ABD 147. Which uses radioisotopes to target small cell lung cancer, and that was partnered with AbCellera. So that was just one kind of note while I'm bringing it up I wanted to make. That's a little bit misleading, but to answer the overall question, I definitely agree that this is still a partnership company.
You would say that it's a partnership company. I would also say that. Yeah, because it's also the way. I don't know if you guys have seen the posters that usually the companies present in the conferences. I mean, I know it's a dumb detail, but usually the posters they are really awful. Like this, you can see how they are done by scientists, and not by people that have some taste. Because the way that AbCellera makes those posters, they look like they are advertising the company. They wanna show what they're capable of. They wanna show what they are doing. It's not the typical poster of an autistic scientist that they don't know how to manage things. Just there are little details, and the fact that also they say we have 16 molecules in the clinic. You wouldn't say that if you would be a wholly owned company, because that doesn't make sense, because out of those 16, most of them, they are failures. But if you are a partnership company, you want to show your partner that you're actually bringing drugs to the clinic. So they're like those small little details that makes me think that in their head they're still a partnership company, but for some reason they say that they are wholly owned. That doesn't make much sense, my opinion.
Yeah, I got one more thing to add on that I just remembered. It might have been on the last earnings call or the one before that, but I remember them being asked about this, and I know they did make a note. They didn't go into super detail, but they made a note about like how specifically they think that there's a lot of opportunity in the T-cell engager area for them to do partnerships, which is where we just saw that big partnership with AbbVie. And Linden, I know you talked about like how it seems like AbCellera has like a whole portfolio of different CD3 arms that could be attractive for partnerships. And while I bring that up right now, maybe that'd be good, really quick. Would you care to just really quick kind of explain to everyone like how these bispecific antibodies work for T-cell engagers and like what a CD3 arm is and why that would be attractive to partners?
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into the science because I'm not an expert either, but so the T-cell engagers, what they are is it's like a bridge between the cancer cells and the actual immune system of your body. So if you have a cancer, but if you have cancer, your immune system cannot kill it. But if you get some T-cell engagers, your immune system can recognize the cancer cells and they can kill them. So the T-cell engagers, they're called engagers because they engage the T-cells, which is the immune response of the body. They engage those T-cells to kill the cancer. And there is several ways to do it. It's a field that it's still being it's been developing. It's not really mature yet. And the way that they engage those T-cell engagers usually is with CD3s. CD3s are only receptors that are on the surface of those T-cells. And you can have CD3s, you also have CD28, you have 1 lambda, gamma. There is several receptors. Usually the CD3s are the ones used. And since I think it's 1985, most T-cell engagers that they've been like tested in the lab or in patients, they derived from this CD3 arm that was discovered in 1985. I think it's like 80% of them. So I think that this is a huge bottleneck that hasn't been like raised till now because scientists, it's really hard to work with those receptors. Like it's really hard to have an antibody that is complementary to the receptors. So they just kept using the one that they knew that it worked, or more or less it worked, and then maybe they modified it a little bit or they tweaked it a little bit, but it was like always more or less the same model. What AbCellera is doing with their T-cell engager, which again I'm hyped from it because like scientifically it looks awesome, but they have to show that it works. They haven't shown it yet, besides like in vitro and in vivo. They have to show it in patients, but in theory, what I think they are trying to do is like make this whole panel of CD3s, and those CD3s, the antibodies for the CD3s, they can be more potent, they can be less potent, they can have more killing capacity, less killing capacity. They can be complemented with other antibodies from other receptors, and instead of like a B-specific antibody, they can make a 3-specific antibody with 3 arms. Or they can make co-stimulants. They are also working with that. So I think that they are trying to make a panel of options. So a partnering company comes and say, okay, we want to attack the cancer cells, and we have this receptor. And then they take this antibody for the lung cancer, and they can complement it with different options, all AbCellera made. All these CD3 antibodies, and I think that could be like the actual backbone for the future to be able to create new T-cell engagers that are the new generation, and they might work better. These are hype. They have to show this, but I feel like that's their mission. And they don't say that because they have the money and they don't need to raise capital for now. So they don't say that because they don't want people to. they don't want to bring the attention to them, but that's what they are doing. That if you look at the posters that they are presenting, that's exactly what they are doing. And Abby is the first one that they are smart enough to get their hands on there and see what, and we're going to see how well they are, or maybe they're not good, but I think that they're doing something really smart for the field.
Dang, Linden, thank you. That was awesome, because the part that confuses me the most is like the science behind it. That was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I just want to make a note. Linden has been absolutely like critical to for what you just said there, being able to like help understand the science, and so appreciate you, Linden, for that. That really since we met in January or whatever, really helped me solidify my conviction in the company, through better understanding like the actual science behind these things.
Yeah, again, it's not my field of work, so I know that I have a lot of blind spots. Like I know that there is things that I don't know, that I just don't know, but I try to reverse engineering what Carl and the company is doing, and it makes complete sense. Like it makes complete sense what they are trying to do. As I was trying to explain the other day to Jack, like the way that I see the whole TCE platform, I feel like in the future they are gonna try to, like the same. I was trying to explain to Jack, like I don't know if you guys have ever gone to IKEA, like to make yourself like a new kitchen, for instance. So you go there and it's like, okay, I have like 20 feet square of a kitchen and I want these like these, and my wife wants these and these and those. But then you don't know what furniture you want, you don't know what color they have, what holders, what's the sink, what's this, what's that. And then you have this guy that start make you like a whole scheme of the options that you can take in or out. And you can start building on something, all in paper. And I feel like AbCellera, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to have this whole panel of different antibodies. It's CD3s, CD28, the 441B co-stimulants. There is other co-stimulants. Also, how they, with the ortho map, they have how they bind it with the cancer receptors. So in a way, it's just like, okay, choose what you want. We're gonna try it. We're gonna make a couple of pilots. We're gonna test them, and then we're gonna come back to you with the results. And then if the company is happy, okay, you have to pay us. And then we have like a 5-10% royalty for the future. You go do the clinical trials. We have other work to do with other companies, because maybe Abby wants to do lung cancer. Okay, and maybe Eli Lilly wants to do prostate cancer. They could use the same CD3s and the same arms, but they are different T-cell engagers. So I feel that they could diversify on different companies and they have different T-cell engagers on different companies. The thing is, they have to be decent companies that they're going to bring that to the end if it actually works, if it actually has potential. But if they drop the molecule because it's not a good time for biotech, or we have this other blockbuster, so we're just going to invest 100% and tunnel vision on that drug, and they drop the one that have with AbCellera. I feel like that's not what they want, because I feel like they are more valuable than that. Was that clear enough, Jack?
I think that's a perfect explanation. Yeah, I mean, essentially they can, like you're saying, they can like almost like build custom solutions based on the need from the partner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Linden, out of the ABCL 575, the 635, and then the ABD 147, which one are you the most bullish on? Is there one of those that you like more than the others?
Definitely, yes. My favorite, 635, the one for hot flashes, because I feel like if they show that works, people are gonna, even if in phase 1, if they show that it has some response and it's absolutely safe. Then people are going to wonder why they are the first ones to put a molecule out there that it's for a well-known biologic problem with a well-known receptor, and they doing with antibodies. With antibodies, like if you go down the rabbit hole of small molecules and antibodies, you can see that antibodies are the best, like by far. Small molecules, like shooting a fish in a barrel, it doesn't make sense. It's not clean. So the fact that it's ABCL 635 is the first antibody for this condition. A lot of people are going to wake up and going to say, okay, maybe that GPCR, maybe it's not bullshit. Maybe they are actually doing something. I think that a lot of people are going to wake up at that moment. And by people, I mean the funds and people that know this stuff.
Yeah, and Linden, really quick, just to kind of like recap what you're saying. So like essentially, ABCL 635 is like a huge opportunity to validate their GPCRs, essentially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. And then, Jack, I had a question for you. It was probably like 15 minutes ago by now, but you were saying you don't really care about like the animal drugs. Do you think they could ever like do something in that field with the animal drugs that would be helpful to the business? Either their own drugs or their own antibodies or anything like that? Or do you think that's just kind of a side part that won't really matter?
Yeah, the animal drug part is interesting to me. My initial thesis, and this is just like a complete guess by me, but I was curious of like, maybe they were doing it because there's potential that those might get approved faster than traditional, like drugs for humans. I'm not positive on that. And I need to check. I can't remember if they're, my assumption right now is they've been paused. I'm not positive, but it's not a big component to my thesis. I mean, ideally, I would prefer to see, drugs for humans, just because, there's potential for more revenue with those, I would assume. And so that would be my answer on that. I don't have a lot of insight into the animal drug part.
Yeah, I got you. I was just curious. Linden, do you have anything to add about that, or do you not know too much about the animal drug part either?
Yeah, I'm really, like, if that works, good. But if it doesn't, it doesn't keep me awake at night, because I think that they have other stuff to do, more important, and that have more potential. That would eventually be good for revenue, but I don't think it's going to be the one that's going to make the stock go up or down, or the company go better or worse, in my opinion. So I don't count that in.
Yeah, I got you. Like, that could just kind of be a side part of the business model. It's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just like a side hustle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get that for sure. I was just kind of asking what your outlook was on that. So you guys both kind of think that the partnerships and then making their own drugs would kind of be how they get their long-term growth? If Jack, you can go first, or Linden, whoever wants to go first on that.
Sure. Could you please, I'm sorry, could you restate the question? I was looking through AbCellera's 10Q for something quick. What was the question? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I can ask Linden if you want to do that, too. Like, you're good, man.
Oh, well, go ahead. I'll answer. What was the question again?
I was just saying, so, like, kind of connected to animal drugs as the side part or whatever. For the main part of the long-term growth for the business, it would mostly just be, like, partnerships with these bigger companies for revenues, and then making their own drugs with these molecules like the ABCL, the ABD, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my main thesis here is, hopefully, ideally, they're going to somewhat maintain that partnership model. Even with some of the molecules they're advancing on their own. Maybe down the road, if they start really getting the flywheel going and start generating a lot of cash, maybe they'll have more opportunity to potentially burn some cash on getting into like phase 2 and phase 3. But right now, I really like to see them sticking with that partnership model, and hope to see them keep on landing big partners. I know they have quite a few already, so maybe just keep on extending what they already have, and then hopefully be able to hand off those molecules in phase 2 or phase 3 for now at least.
Absolutely. And Linden, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm aligned with what Jack was saying. Yeah, there's not much to add.
Awesome, man. So with this one, AbCellera, it's really interesting to me how they have so much cash on hand, but I think it's like 900 million liquidity, and their market cap's only around 600 million. So in my opinion, that automatically makes it undervalued because it's trading below cash value. So, is there any like specific catalysts you guys are expecting that can kind of close this valuation gap over maybe like this next year, by the end of the year, anything like that? And Linden, you can start with this one if you'd like.
Yeah, I have a really quick one. The one that I'm looking forward is the upfront payment from AbbVie for the T-cell engager. If you guys check how much AbbVie has been paying for other T-cell engager in the past, it's a lot of money. And that can be significant for the revenue of this year, which is I think it's 4 million. No, it's 4 million was this quarter, I think. So anything would help for the stock right now, and the way you say it, I think it's spot on. It's like the market cap of the company is below its liquidity. That sounds dumb, but it's not dumb when it's when it's a biotech that have a drug in the clinic that everyone knows that it's not gonna work, so they're gonna probably dilute or something like that. Which this is what they call the zombie biotech companies, which is really common right now. That's also why the field is really depressed. And I feel like they're just somehow getting into that space. They don't say anything, so they get camouflaged with those other company, and it looks like a shit company. Because I feel like they have that. They want to do that because they want to focus on what they want to focus, which is the science. So I would say that the next catalyst is the AbbVie upfront payment, and then the phase 1 and the phase 1 for 575 and 635. I think those next year they're also going to be very significant.
I completely agree. And to add on to that, kind of like what you're saying, with these zombie biotechs, Carl Hansen, when he was doing his speech at the University of Austin, Texas, which I think Linden and I have listened to it 10 times over each. Everyone tuned in should check it out. I completely understand why. A lot of these companies are just, kind of pushing slop into the clinic and hoping to dump it on, someone else. And like Linden says, the whole entire market's beat up right now. And there's obviously good reason for some of the skepticism with what they're bringing forward. And, since they're not generating any revenue yet and haven't actually gotten anything to the market, it's understandable that this company is trading so cheap. It's essentially priced like it's going to be a failure.
Yeah.
So, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And a lot of people have different approaches. Some people will buy 15 different biotech stocks with, later stage, throwing a bunch of darts at a board and hoping you land one. And so, the way I look at this is I'm taking a long-term approach. And, as we've been talking about this whole time, it's about their whole entire stack that they're building and why we believe it's going to lead to success down the road. And as I've said before, I kind of view it as like a multi-bagger or bust. So assuming they are going to be successful, which that's my personal belief, then, I think it's undervalued here because no matter what kind of success they have down the road, I would assume it's going to bring the stock up a lot more than what it's trading at now. And then if they were going to fail, then it's going to zero. And so in terms of valuation, until they can convince the market that they're worth investing in, my expectation is it's probably going to relatively track cash levels. So right now, it's around a $600 million market cap, and they have $600 million in cash, not including the $200 million from the Canadian government. So to me, it's undervalued, but that's because I'm, bullish. So it's, it all depends, but I completely understand why it's trading at these levels right now.
Yeah, and is there a specific price target you have in mind, by the end of the year, this year or next year, anything like that? Or is it just full on multi-bagger or bust and just kind of wait and see what happens?
My approach is multi-bagger or bust. I'm not very good with doing price targets. You asked me about when Palantir was $20. I never expected it would have gotten to 40 so fast, let alone get to 135. So my goal is to when I see something that I think is really special, and I think it's at a fair price, I buy shares and I just, rely on my belief in the company to scale and be successful that will, drive the price up down the road. Whether that means it's going to be, in the next 10 years, even if it's a 5x from here, that's great. If it's 10x, even better, 100x, in 10 years, whatever it might be, my approach is just trying to get into something that I think has room for a lot of growth, and then see what happens. And that approach might not be for everyone, but that's how I like to go at it.
Yeah, I personally don't see the same approach of like multi-bagger or bust. I'm not into the bust thing, so I'm rather multi-bagger of they got just bought by another company, and then it's just like probably they're gonna buy for like 3, 4, 5x, like we saw this week with another company, because the capabilities they have, they're pretty important for antibody discovery. So I don't think that they would get diluted. The thing is, when that would happen, I don't know. It probably wouldn't happen this year. It would happen in some years, and by then we would have other answers from other things. So I honestly think that they have a bright future ahead of them. Like if what you say, Ashton, I really like the fact that you frame it as that what attracts you from the company is the level of liquidity they have, because that's what helps me sleep at night. Because if they would be short on money, we would have a problem maybe by the end of the year. But they still have some traction with all this money.
Yeah, and that's Go ahead, Jack.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's a perfect summary, and I'm just trying to balance between my optimism and pessimism. But I completely agree. Obviously, like we say, their platform is special, and something that my dad told me, and he's not an investor, but he made this comment. They're building this, almost finished with this state-of-the-art GMP facility.
Yeah.
And that's not something a shitco would do.
Absolutely.
And so, so I completely agree. I mean, I think, going bust would be like something going terribly wrong. If they got bought out, I would be, I would be upset by that because I want to hold for the long run. But I really like your answer, Linden. I think that's actually a really good summary.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was the first thing I noticed when I looked into the company, because I was looking into it. Like, the first thing I looked at was the chart, and I was like, oh, wow, something's going on here. And then I looked at their balance sheet, and I was like, wow, that is a lot of cash for a company that's sitting at 500 million market cap.
I mean,
yeah, that's what kind of got me interested at first. I thought that was crazy. And I was going to ask you... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, now that you bring that up, this brings a great moment for me to make a note about their liquidity position, because I picked up a nugget that I actually kind of forgot about from Andrew Booth, the CFO of the company. It was about a year ago from now. He got asked about the current financial position of the company, and my expectation has been I assumed they had around 3 years or so to start generating revenue, and whether that was going to be through getting upfront payments like through AbbVie, or showing potentially good data readouts in phase 1 where hopefully there would be a boost in stock price and they could dilute a little bit. An interesting note that Andrew Booth made was, he said, we have more than enough capital for the next 3 years, and actually an opportunity where we don't need to raise capital again, because I think that's where the heart of the question is. And he goes on to say, he says, one of the reasons we would say that is because we do generate revenues from research fees. In addition, you look at the types of deals that are being done out there and the licensing, not just assets, but also some of the building blocks, such as the T-cell engager platform they have, which Linden talked about potentially being like the backbone for T-cell engagers. He says there's a number of deal comps out there where they're getting 8-figure upfronts in order to do early discovery in the preclinical deals, which they would expect to be able to do as well with their T-cell engager platform. And so then Booth finishes it up saying he thinks that actually really mitigates the cash burn that they have. So I think that could be a big deal. If they're getting revenue we don't expect in the near future, that would extend their cash pile even further than what we expect, which would be really great for helping the company continue to do what they do.
Yeah, that's huge, and that could really de-risk it along the way too, kind of like you're saying, because that could get them more cash and help them last a little bit longer while they go through these trials and these phases and everything.
Absolutely.
Is there like any factors or anything like that would kind of prompt you to reassess your position and like where you're at with the company? Is there something that could happen? Like not like something crazy like a black swan event, like something happens to the CEO, but like something with the business that happens.
Yeah, really quick, did we lose Linden? Or is he still
I'm here.
That's not message. Oh, gotcha.
I think he's here.
Well, I'll just answer really quick, and then I'll let Linden go. But my answer to that would be, I think back when I wrote my original thesis article in December, I made a note about how I was pretty pissed off about how like they hadn't advanced any new molecules to the clinic for 2 quarters in a row, and they've now addressed that and said that they plan on moving an average of at least 2 a year from here, on average. And so, in their recent earnings presentation, I caught just one little segment where they said that they expect to advance between 1 and 3. So I guess that's where they get the average of 2. So the thing that would worry me is if there was no advancement of molecules in 2026. I expect them to, but for example, if that happened and there's nothing, then that would concern me for sure and potentially make me reassess. But I don't think that'll happen, obviously, so we'll see.
Awesome, Linden. Did you have like any factors or anything like that would make you reassess your position in the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I've said it several times in X, like I'm pretty schizophrenic with everything, all the news that happens around this company, because I'm not trying to YOLO my money. I think that they are trying. I feel like if I get their mission right, I'm very aligned with them, so I'm with them. If the news like the patent stuff would have been against AbCellera, that would have been like very traumatic, because I think that, again, from the model that I have in the company, I think that it's really important for them to keep that. So if they would have lost the court appeal with Brooker, that would have been bad, because all the other companies would have been able to use the microfluidics same way that AbCellera does. So that's one thing that would make me really scared. Other things would be like losing a partnership with for instance, Abby now that they started, or Eli Lilly. Also, obviously, like the whole gambling of going to phase 1, 2, and 3 with the drugs, that's a risk. But I don't think that that's the way of the road. But if you have a drugs in the clinic, they can go right, or they can go wrong. One little tangent here with the risk of the molecules in the clinic is like usually I feel like we are used to listen to most of people that talk about the clinical trials, that they are really risky, they almost never work, it's really, really risky. And it's mostly for like small molecules. There is this paper that I was reading the other day. It says that the small molecules, they have a 7% on average of like success to reach from phase 1 to the market. So only 7% reach that. But when we're working in antibodies, that's 25%, because antibodies, they are not, again, they're not shooting a fish in a barrel. They're like more educated drugs. They have a target. They are more specific. Your body recognizes that as an antibody, and if it's well humanized, it's harder to have an adverse reaction from your immune system. So there is like a 25% probability to get an antibody from phase 1 to the market, and they now have 2, which is 575 and 635, and that probabilistically is like a 46%. So it's somehow a flipping coin. It's a 50-50 situation that in 5, 6, 7 years they're gonna have either one of those 2 molecules in the clinic. I think that's not that risky at the end of the day. It's not a 7% like a small molecule. They have more chances to reach the clinic. And also, by what Jack was saying just now, it's like they say they're gonna bring 1 to 3 molecules, that's also a factor that I'm expecting, because if they actually do that, that's a lot of molecules, like a lot. They're going to need to raise a shit ton of capital to cover all the expenses from all the clinics, or they're going to be giving those molecules to other partners. So I don't think it's a matter of what, it's a matter of when. It's when they're going to get there. Again, if the patent stuff doesn't work, if there is some huge problem on the antibodies, on some adverse reaction, that maybe they have a huge blind spot in the way they make the antibodies, that can happen, but I'm confident they are trying to cover those blind spots. Maybe some collaborations, they don't work, that wouldn't be good. Money-wise, yeah, it's always good to have more revenue, but right now they have low revenue, but still they have a lot of liquidity. So personally, I can cope with like the stock going down, because I'm not trying to time the stock, because I feel like the multi-bagger potential they have worth the fact of being schizophrenic, of seeing the stock going down and down every week. Like, it's the way it goes. And I don't know. What about you, Jack? What's your risks, man?
Yeah, I think, man, I agree with everything you said, and especially like on the point you made, like about the importance of that patent trial that they won against Bruker. I was out golfing, and when I got that news, I like couldn't even hit the ball anymore. I was so excited I couldn't even focus, because it was so critical to the thesis. And if they would have lost that like, for example, would have been probably a thesis killer. And I know, like, I think either last earnings call, the one before that, Carl Hansen, the CEO, made a note about how advancing these two wholly owned molecules into the clinic right now is kind of their make or break moment. And so, like, for example, if both of those failed in the clinic, that would obviously be a pretty concerning thing, because unless they do start getting like a big upfront payment from AbbVie or something, they are, in my opinion, going to need some sort of boost in stock price down the road to raise a little bit more capital. And that's where I think it's really critical to have good data readouts with 635 or 575. And one just quick note, and I'm going to go off course a little bit here, but the conversation of dilution has come up a little bit here and there. And one important note to make is, like, Carl Hansen's buying shares, around like 230 or something he bought. And my buddy Arnie Trezzi, who has covered the company just a little bit, made a nice comment that I agree with, saying, like, he wouldn't be buying shares down there if he expected to dilute at those levels. So either there's, they have a plan where they don't need to dilute, like Andrew Booth might have said, or, they would hopefully expect some sort of meaningful boost in the stock price, whether that's a 3x or whatever, to raise a little bit more capital. So, that's my take on it. Completely agree with everything Linden said, especially the importance of their microfluidics patent, and then, hopefully showing some sort of good readouts here in phase 1.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll kind of switch it up now to focus on Carl Hansen, since we brought him up, and that, how much of, and I'll ask, this could be to you, Jack, how much of your confidence, like, in AbCellera is based on Hansen's leadership?
I would say it's pretty significant, because he was the one that invented their, I think he might have invented it in cooperation with Veronique Lecoult, or Veronica, if that's how you say her name. But, he's the inventor of essentially the core part of the company that is, powering their whole platform. And so, in combination with his, extensive background in engineering for like over 20 years, and then working under Stephen Quake, and the fact that he invented like the core tech of the platform, his involvement is extremely important to me. And something interesting, an article Linden shared with me recently was about how, like, as biotech companies go through different stages, and once they go from preclinical to clinical, sometimes there's a requirement for a change in leadership with a CEO that's more experienced in doing fundraising and things like that. I kind of have mixed feelings on that, because, just because of the importance I see in Hansen's leadership in the company. An interesting note I remember him making during his University of Austin, Texas speech was he was talking about, like, how the company had such a difficult time fundraising at the very beginning of their formation, and he talked about I think after they initially raised some capital through friends and family and stuff, and then COVID happened. I believe he was talking about where they got the big grant from the Canadian government, and we were saying thanks to his massive experience in writing grant proposals and things like that, he was able to help secure that funding.
It was from DARPA, I think.
Oh yeah, you're right, from DARPA.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that he's going to stay with the company long term, and along with having Andrew Lowe, who is a director on the company who taught finance at MIT, I believe, during the global financial crisis. He has some expertise, and then hearing from Andrew Booth on the calls, I've always enjoyed his competence and what he says on there. So I'm hoping that Hansen can stick with the company for the long term, because especially hearing him talk at his speech at University of Austin, you can tell he's not in it for the money. He went from having $100K to his name to a few billion overnight, and now back to having nothing. So he's really committed to the science, and trying to make this company become a giant in the long term. So he is important to my thesis for sure.
Yeah, if I can add to that, which I absolutely agree with Jack. In my opinion, what Carl's presence on the company, I would be really upset if he would be kicked out, or he would step down. I think that this guy he really has a vision. Maybe he can be half delusional, but if you understand the guy, he's
Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
I was going to say, I think we might have lost him.
All right, we'll wait for a second. Maybe we'll reconnect quick.
I'll just say really quick that when I was looking at the company, I thought it was really important that he looked like he was the right leader for the company, and that's important when you're looking at a company like AbCellera. It's a biotech. It's like a mini cap stock, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I was listening to Joe Lonsdale. He's the co-founder of Palantir, talking about how he runs his 8VC venture capital company and what he looks for in leaders. And I think, I'm not going to get the percentage down right, but I think he was saying there's a massive difference in between having a leader in the 95th percentile or 90 or whatever versus the 99th percentile. And he said, being in a top 1% is a huge advantage. And obviously we don't know for sure how Carl stacks up against everyone else in the space, but from my interpretation, I think Linden will probably expand on this. He definitely seems to be extremely competent, and has the heart and soul of the mission in mind. But Linden, are you back?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I don't know where I left, but so for me, that if Carl would step down or he would be forced to quit, I doubt it. That would be really bad. Because I think this guy, together with Veronique, they started this microfluidics, and they could have sold that. They had a patent, and you can see how there is interest. There is this broker company that they are suing them for the rights for this device. They could have just sold the patent and make some money and just be an academic life or whatever they wanted. But no, they took that. And then they went for the next challenge, which is doing antibodies with the microfluidic like no one has ever before. They started a company, which, like Carl said, was not successful into raising capital. But I feel like he had a knowledge or a vision from this device that was farther from money. He knew that what he was potentially be able to do with this. So he started raising capital with DARPA. Then they IPO'd. They had acquired the Triani, the Tetragenetics, the Orthomap. They have been acquired things to complement this. They are now building the GMP facility. And everything starts from the microfluidics. So if we lose, I feel like if we lose the guy, we lose the the main visionary for the company. If like you tell me in 10 years, okay, they have like several drugs out, and like they have succeeded in their mission, and Carl steps down, I would understand. But right now, like, I know that he has to be exhausted, because like this is a huge track from a scientist. Like personally, I reflect on it, and I don't think I would be able to do half of the shit that they have done, and because it feels like they are just starting, and like the fact that they have their stock at $2 out of all the work that they have been doing, like it's not fair, but it's just like it is what it is. Like he's not going to complain about it, but the potential that they have is huge. So I think that it wouldn't be a good sign. Again, that would be a pretty bad omen to see Carl Hansen stepping down in the next couple of years, in my opinion.
I completely agree on that. That would, that would potentially even maybe force me to sell it. Yeah, if he stepped down in the next couple of years. So I think we're aligned on that. We don't want to see him go.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's really important, especially if he's the one that like invented it. We kind of need him at the wheel.
Yeah, right. And it's just I don't know. He says it. He didn't take any biology class, but at the end of the day, it's not about biology or not biology. Like the receptors, you have autistic people in the lab working on that. He is like trying to make. It's like almost a manufacturing company where you create antibodies for other companies to take on and put them on the market. He's just providing the raw materials that no one wants to do. And I feel like he has the capabilities, he has the energy, and he has the right mission and the right mindset. So if it's not him, I don't know, it's hard. For me, it's hard. And I think that like he was already owning 19% of the company, and he bought shares at 2.6. He bought like 3,000 shares at $2.6. I think that's not him trying to make money, or like maybe waiting for a quick swing of the stock. It's just trying to give confidence to the people that it's out there, like we retail or like actual investors, to show that he's trying to do something, but he cannot say it. Like he cannot say it because he's like a scientist and he's doing things that require full attention. So he's not going to be busy on the financials right now. For me, that was a sign, honestly. That was a sign in which he was like, okay, yeah, I'm still here.
I completely agree.
Okay, I'll shift us a little bit over to the pipeline. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they haven't had any new molecules in the last 2 quarters, correct?
Yep, that's right. And now that they're advancing those 2 in-house, but yeah, that's correct. For the last 2, nothing.
Okay, does that like make you worried at all on their pipeline progress, or not really?
And well, now that they are back on track, moving those 2, and as long as they stage their commitment of moving like between 1 and 3 per year, I'll be happy. I've definitely thought about why they didn't for the last couple of quarters, and I'm not positive. Like an idea I had, and this is just my guess, but I was curious if maybe because they were focusing on preparing, finishing their good manufacturing process or practice facility. And then also, focusing on doing the clinical stage finally, which is a big moment for them. I thought maybe that might have like kind of distracted them from being able to like focus on advancing other molecules. So that was like my theory on why that might have stopped. But again, the fact that they're moving 2 now, and as long as they stay to their commitment of between 1 and 3 from here on out, I'm okay with it.
Do you remember, Jack, how many molecules they have in the pre-discovery? I'm trying to look at the earnings call, but I don't see it. Usually they say, we have, I think that they had like 8 molecules for GPCRs in pre-discovery. I don't know.
I'm not sure on that one.
Okay.
I'm not positive. One note I do want to make though quick, I do have their most recent 10Q up, and we were talking about how, some of these molecules have been paused. I see we got, so out of their 16, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that make a note of expect no further progress. And so even though like some of those we note like have stopped because of funding rounds or fundraising issues from some of these partners, I don't think it means that they've like completely just given up on them. Otherwise they would have made the asterisk mark and they're saying expect no further progress. So even though they're paused, it doesn't mean they're dead weight. And so I think we have like around technically like 12 active molecules in the clinic. But I'm not sure on how many of those are GPCRs. And again, it is important to note, like a lot of those are from the Triani mouse license and things like that, which kind of detracts from the how appealing it is, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I'm looking now, and they say that they have 15 GPCR, but this is AbCellera initiated programs, so it doesn't mean that they are ongoing. It's just that they started. They maybe have been killed already. So yeah, that doesn't say anything.
Sure.
Is my mic not working? What is going on?
No, it's working.
I just think he was bugging out. My bad.
All good.
All right, Jack. So I'll ask you this. I know you've highlighted a lot about AbCellera's government partnerships. Do you think that kind of helps them become a dominant biotech player?
Sure, that's a great question. So I actually wrote like a long article like a month ago or whatever talking about my investing framework. And not that it's perfect or anything, but the way I like to roll is, I definitely really find it attractive when companies are partnering with the government. And one of the components to my investing framework is seeking companies that do that. And one of my beliefs is that governments often have been early funders in innovative technology that's groundbreaking. And so, for example, we have the Canadian government committing over $200 million in capital, along with British Columbia as a whole, seeking to become a dominant space for life sciences. And then we also have DARPA working with AbCellera. And when Hansen spoke at the University of Austin, Texas, he was making the note that in order to get funding from DARPA, or I should say like to partner with them, like on the P3 program, that was the Pandemic Protection Program, or Pandemic Prevention Program, he said like, your idea has to be crazy enough to where like you almost get laughed out of the room. Like he says like basically anywhere besides DARPA, you would get laughed out of the room for the idea, and that's what DARPA is seeking. And so that gives me confidence seeing partners like that invested in AbCellera. And in terms of dominance, I don't think it's necessarily just like the government partnerships or work that would give them dominance, but it serves as an indicator that tells me that there might be something special about this company. And where I think dominance comes down to just important milestones that would be to keep on successfully moving molecules to the clinic and staying on their goal of advancing like around 2 a year. And then obviously they need to convert some of those to the market.
Yeah, I completely agree. Linden, do you have anything to add on about that?
Yeah, I'm not really pro-government, so I don't really, I don't really see the much. Like, it's always good to have the government in your favor, or at least not bothering you, better than against you. I think it's good, but it's not what makes me more bullish about the company. But I completely understand the framework of Jack. I might be a little bit biased on this, though.
Yeah, for sure. And that's okay. Everyone's got different reasons to invest in the company. I was curious to hear your thoughts. And then, Linden, so earlier you were talking about how their cash pile kind of helps you sleep well at night and kind of de-risk the stock. I was going to ask you, since they had the success with COVID-19 and their response with that, does that also kind of help you sleep well at night and like influence your confidence in the company?
Yeah, I think that this is the COVID-19 response that they had. That was the actual showcase of how the quality platform they have, because they were able to get an antibody for COVID in like 90 days, again, antibodies. It's the fact that the antibodies were later not accepted for the FDA. The FDA decided to market is not because they weren't successful. It's because the virus itself changes. So it's the same as the flu shot. It's not that the antibody was bad. It's just not the best approach for this kind of thing. The COVID-19 is not the best approach. It was good, but it's not the best. But my point is, platform-wise, technically, they showed how fast they were. In 90 days, they went from blood samples from a recovered patient to they were able to screen all the B cells in this patient that he recovered from COVID, so he had those immune antibodies for the COVID. They detected those antibodies, they isolated them, they screened them, and they produced them. They made the tests. They saw that those antibodies were the good ones for COVID. They passed them on to Eli Lilly, that they put them on the market. I mean, in my opinion, they already show that it works. If there is an actual objective, which is COVID-19, having an antibody against it, the pipeline is completely confirmed. So now it's just about how they use that for other antibodies and other conditions. It does help me sleep at night because the techniques that they are using, they've been validated, and they have done it faster and like no one else. So in my opinion, yeah, we already have an experiment, which was COVID-19, in which it was a double blessing, because it was first, they validated the platform and they showed to everyone that it works. And second, they have a shit ton of liquidity from that antibody that now allows them to fly under the radar and to start investing on the rest of the pipeline for the GPCRs or the T-cell engagers. And they don't need to make much noise, and they have that going, and they have enough liquidity not to get ditched out of the market. So in my opinion, yeah, the COVID-19 response, this company I wouldn't be bullish on the company if not for that antibody. And one small tangent with that, if I can. After they approved the antibody for the COVID-19, there was the stock obviously went bananas from that, because everyone is like, oh, this awesome platform, but they were so they are so protectors of their microfluidic device that somehow there was this narrative in which the Triani mouse was the actual good part of the platform that was successful in the antibody. Everyone thought that the Triani mouse, which is this humanized mouse to discover antibodies just to create the B cells, it was the actual key factor, which it wasn't. And you can see in the revenues from, I think it was 2022, it was like 20 times more than now. I think it was 20 or 25 million a year of licensing the Triani. Now no one licenses almost the Triani. It's they have 1 million a quarter from that one. And I think that somehow they just made this distraction maneuver in which they show that it was the Triani, but it wasn't the Triani. It was the microfluidics. And they never say it, because I don't think that they want to bring attention to themselves.
I think that's a great summary. And I just want to add a couple things on to what you said. So to start, like you said, maybe the antibodies weren't the best solution for COVID because it was a rapidly evolving virus. And when they did bamlanivimab and then bebtelovimab, if I said those right, those were the names of the two COVID molecules. Hansen did state that they believe they helped save around 50,000 lives from those therapies. And so, even though the virus evolved, and then I think that kind of coincided with restrictions started to ease up around COVID, and herd immunity started to come, and people were less fearful of it because those antibodies are for people that were already sick in the hospital, and they can get a therapy right there to be cured of it. I find that notable. And then another thing is like people I've seen criticized AbCellera on being like, oh, well, they didn't really use an antibody discovery platform because they recovered antibodies from, someone who already recovered from COVID. But my counterpoint to that would be like, okay, that might be true, but like AbCellera was still the fastest company in the world to be able to, get it from testing to, or from a blood sample to human testing. And so I find that notable, and like overall, I believe that companies that excel under pressure set themselves apart from the rest. And so, overall, how they responded to COVID-19 was pretty an encouraging sign. And I agree with Linden. Like, if that never happened, I probably wouldn't even know about the company, let alone have invested. So it was a big proof of concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like it's if they do end up succeeding, this is going to be a huge part of it, because this is how they obtain most of this cash that they're able to sit on.
That was like, talk about getting lucky. It was like a perfect storm for them where this happened, and then they were able to get a shit ton of cash on their balance sheet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, for sure.
So I have this theory of like they want to fly under the radar. Why do you guys think that is? Like, if just picture that is right, which I'm not saying that is, but what would you think that might be the case? What they are doing this, or if someone in the audience have some brighter idea.
Well, I'll go quick. I'm a big Peter Thiel fan, and so obviously in his book 0 to 1, he writes about like how all great companies are built on secrets, and not that everything they do is a secret, but perhaps it's about like the fact that their approach of using AI is what I think is a little bit different than what the rest of the market is doing, and that's where they're focusing on the really, really high quality single cell analysis where they can screen for function and learn about the sequencing of the antibodies and protein folding and things like that. And to me, a big edge is being able to leverage real world data to help the user make a decision, and kind of in combination with like how viciously we saw them fighting for that 408 patent, their microfluidics tech. My assumption might be that they don't want everyone to wake up and see that that's the ideal method for discovering antibodies versus using computational algorithms or something like that. And so they're just flying under the radar, trying to advance these things, and by the time the market would catch up, they got a whole pipeline going in a flywheel of cash.
Yeah, I love what you just said, because it also makes me think about the 0 to 1 that they say. Peter talks about like a company like Google, that it says that they are doing like self-driving cars, they are doing these, those, and that, but never said they are a research engine, because they don't want to show up their monopoly.
Totally.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jack. They're just flying under the radar, so they don't want to show their monopoly, because if they're able to do this and take this over, and no one's really paying attention except for like us and some other funds, of course. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So here, Jack, if you could ask Carl Hansen one question about just AbCellera's future, what would it be?
Oh man, I'd probably ask him when the heck they're going to start taking investor relations seriously with retail. No, but honestly, like my biggest question that I just really wish I knew more about is like what the real plan is for obtaining more cash. As I've said, like Andrew Booth kind of hinted at, maybe they'll get more money through partnerships or upfront payments and milestones and things like that. But then I also wonder about like the potential need for dilution. So if I could just like sit down with that guy and really talk to him, I would really want to understand what their plan is for capital and managing it as they advance these molecules. Because assuming that the science is right and the tech works, I think the next biggest part is having the capital prepared to be able to keep on advancing their pipeline. So that would be the biggest question I would ask him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Linden, what question would you ask him? And then I'll respond to what Jack said too.
I have two main questions. One from the past, and one for the future. The one for the past is what the fuck happened with Peter Thiel while he left the board of directors. I think
that's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's something that everyone wants to know, and I don't think that we ever gonna figure that out. And the one for the future is what in like 10 13 years, I think it is, the patent is going to expire for the microfluidic. How they think they're going to be differentiated from everyone else to be able to, if it plays out, if they get a monopoly on antibodies, how they think that they're going to be able to maintain that monopoly if they don't have the patent, so everyone can keep up on that aspect. They may be going to have like new technologies patented, they're going to have secrets, they're going to have a special pipeline, or I don't know. That I would like to understand what is the how they are trying to manage that in the future if everything plays out.
I got one quick comment to add on that. I think that's a really interesting point about Thiel leaving. And I've been thinking about that, and a couple points I just wanted to make quick is, although he left the board, so one thing that kind of a misconception I've seen go around, I believe, is like people have kind of posted being like, you can go on the SEC EDGAR database and still see SEC filings showing Thiel's ownership, and people will cite that saying that, he's still an owner, but I believe it's impossible to really know if he still owns shares or not. The question of why he left the board is a whole, another topic. But regarding his ownership, from my understanding, it was kind of difficult. He's got like 10 different holding companies that he owns his shares through. Like one's Abe Investments, and then some of it's through the Founders Fund. And since his ownership, I believe it was like 4.99%, which I believe he strategically kept it under 5% because when you're no longer, he had to report or disclose his ownership because he was on the board, and so therefore was required. But once he left, if your ownership's under 5%, you're not required to disclose. So we don't know for sure if he still holds his shares, but likewise, we don't know if he sold them either. And a couple interesting points that, gives me a little bit of hope that he's still invested in the company. Not that the whole thesis is relied on Thiel being in it, but I thought it was interesting that Carl Hansen was invited to speak at the University of Austin, Texas, because that school was, I believe, founded partly with Peter Thiel involved. And then, in addition, a gentleman on here named David Brooks highlighted to me when we were discussing about this that AbCellera still shows up on the Founders Fund website. I'm not positive if once the Founders Fund might exit from a company if they take it off of their website. But I thought that was potentially encouraging as well. But overall, I completely agree about the question: why the heck did he leave? That would that would be great to know.
I agree. Yeah. So that was going to be one of my questions, and then I love your question, Jack, about what's their plan to get more cash, get more capital to keep moving forward. I totally agree. Those are two great questions.
Sure.
And then Linden. So if you look like 5 to 10 years out, what do you think success looks? What does it look like for AbCellera? Like, what do they need to do? What does the market need to recognize? Anything like that? I know it's a broad question, but
yeah, no. But in my thesis, I think that success in 5-10 years would be having I don't know, like 10-20 molecules in the clinic and some approved in the market with different partners, and just like being diversified with different partners and different molecules on different diseases, even like wholly owned molecules, some of them. The way to do it can be like from top down or up down. So it can be a partner that could come and say, okay, we want this, we want to do this receptor for this disease, la-di-da, and they start the whole thing from pre-discovery to clinic. Or maybe AbCellera says, okay, we have a team, like we are smart people, like this 635 molecule for hot flashes. We think that it's a space that we, knowing our capabilities, we can excel here. So we can start pushing from down up. So they start doing that in pre-discovery. They throw it they get IND and phase 1, and maybe they want to license it to or give it to another company, that they can continue phase 1, 2, and 3. That's what's my ideal vision of the company for the future, in which they are like diversified on different diseases, different companies, and different ways to manage, but always on the antibody space, and always having a focus not on what's the actual hot topic, which could be like obesity right now or diabetes. Those are hot topics now that everyone's want to be there. No, it's like, what are going to be the next in 5 years? What's going to be the awesome peak in 5 years? That's the way that I think that they're going to be successful.
I think that's a perfect summary of the ideal outlook. I really don't have a lot to add on to that. I think that's pretty good, and especially emphasizing what you said about continuing to work on molecules that are differentiated and not like you say the hot topic or the what everyone wants, but rather like for example with 635, where where they're trying to be like the first antibody therapy for hot flashes. I want to keep on seeing them work in unique areas, and then it all comes down to generating revenue. And so getting drugs to the market will be the key when it's all said and done to me, whether that's through continually doing partnerships or advancing, through phase 1 on their own and handing it off. They got to get some drugs to the market so that way they can get more cash, and then they can afford to, bring even more molecules and get the flywheel going.
Yeah.
So, like Linden said, 10 years from now, we want to see a large portfolio of differentiated antibodies that are, unique within their respective areas.
Yeah, if I can add something to that, even like it's a little bit of a tangent, but the people I keep seeing the same critiques for AbCellera. One is like, oh yeah, they're taking now 2 molecules in the market. That's going to take 10 years, but I feel like that's going to create a snowball effect. Even if the revenues they get a little bit better, which I think they will with the AbbVie partnership, but maybe they are not good. But still, investors see the potential because they start having more partnerships, more molecules going in, and they see that there is a lot of companies that are like trusting the pipeline or taking on the drugs. I'm not saying that the company can be a multi-bagger in 10 years. Like, I think it can be before that, because there's going to be a snowball effect in which we're all going to realize maybe that this company is actually the engine to produce the best antibodies out there. So everyone's going to be using them to get those antibodies. And again, I think that they don't want to compete with anyone. They just want to make antibodies, give them to the next big player that does the phases, and they keep doing the antibodies. So I feel like it's a win-win for almost everyone. Like, it's not a win-win for the other biotechs in the space, but I think that they are differentiated enough in the antibody space to be the best ones, to provide the best molecules to the best big companies.
Completely agree.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you nailed it.
Thanks, man.
If you guys are okay with it, do you guys want to kind of wrap it up with a Q&A from the people listening? If that's cool with you guys.